Hello all and welcome to the official FanTeam podcast brought to you by FanTeam, the biggest daily fantasy site in Europe. My name is Fergie and today we are here to introduce the record-breaking FanTeam Euros 2021 game that boasts a 1 million prize pool for just 1 month's fantasy football management. Incredible stuff. To help me go through it, I'm joined by not one but two absolute legends of the fantasy football world. Firstly, we have three top 500 FPL finisher in the FPL General, aka Mark McGettigan. Mark, how's your Luxembourg? How's your luck? Sorry,
Andrew,
slip of the tongue there, mate. Sorry
I think
about
I might have some internet issues here. You might lose me from the call there. It's I always enjoy international breaks, and do you know what? To be honest, I stopped watching Ireland probably 2 or 3 years ago because I just realised every time I sat down, it was 90 minutes of my life I was never going to get back. So to be honest, it didn't surprise me to see Luxembourg win that game 1-0. You know, I was having a look at this FanTeam tournament, and I was searching through all the teams, and I was trying to find the Irish team and pick some Irish players, and then I remembered, we're not there. So yeah, thanks for that.
That's okay. And why would you want to pick Irish players in the Euros, even if they weren't anyway? They're not the best of all, mate.
Exactly.
They're really
Maybe bench fillers. Maybe looking for the 4 million bench
4
fillers.
4 million bench fillers, exactly. We also have Premier League injury analyst Ben Dury with us. Great to have you on, Ben. Unfortunately, being Welsh is pretty tough to make jokes about the English national team, so we'll leave that there. How are you, Ben?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. We'll write our own jokes in the tournament. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
Believe that. Yeah, mate. All good.
I was looking at the fixtures and the playlist this morning. There's a lot of England players pretty high up, you know. And I was looking at the odds as well, and they weren't the favourites. How do you feel about that?
I reserve judgment. You know what? I don't think Gareth's squad is nailed at this moment in time. I still think there's one or two sort of surprises to maybe come into that. If you look at the likes of maybe Trent, who was omitted from this recent round of games. And for me, Gareth, I think, needs to have his idea of what that set 11 is to take, to carry that over in the tournament. There are not many games for us to be able to solidify that group. So, look, it's hard. We've been, how many times have we been going into tournaments on highs, unbeaten through qualification, group games?
It's coming home.
You get carried away with the hype. I mean, I went to Russia. I went to the semi-final.
Oh, wow.
And look, it's the hope that kills you. We're there. That's the main thing. We are there.
Exactly. This is the thing. So in this video and podcast, we're going to give an introduction to the FanTeam Euros 2021 game. We're going to go through the rules and scoring system in detail. We will look at the similarities to FPL and the slight differences from FPL. We'll look at the life-changing prizes on offer before very briefly running through some of the player prices. And I've got a first draft which just happens to have 3 Welshmen in, but we can talk about that a bit later on. As we join the hunt for that £200,000 record-breaking first place prize. Yes, you heard me right. £200,000 first prize for just a month of fantasy football management. Absolute game changer from FanTeam. Ben, how excited are you for this competition?
Unbelievable, mate, isn't it? When you think about it in the grand scheme of things, there's going to be elements of skill involved, but ultimately, that could come down to a little bit of luck as well. Keeping players fit, players being available. There will be 1 or 2 anomalies, in the results against the rankings. So everybody has got a realistic, chance to shine and win some, like you say, some real game-changing money. Looking forward to it, mate. Really, really looking forward to it. I love the Monster, the weekly prize. I'll hold my hands up and I'll say I've drifted away from that season-long game. I'm out of that. But I love the Monster. I love the opportunity of just a quick refresh every week and winning some cash. So this is right up my street.
Indeed. We should mention the game is now live already. So if you want to take a look at the rules and prices for yourself, then click on the top link in the description below. To clarify, there is a buy-in involved, so it's for over 18s only, and begambleaware.org. If you haven't already, please remember to click the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. To press the like button if you enjoy our content. It would be very, very much appreciated. Mark, it's your first full season really in it, playing on on the Fan Team platform. How has your experience been this year?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I think I started out the season playing maybe 4 or 5 different fantasy formats, and I'm down to 2 or maybe 3. So FPL, Fan Team, and I'm still dabbling a little bit with Fantasy Scotland. So yeah, really enjoyed it. I even dipped my toe into F1 fantasy for the first time.
Oh, wow.
This year on Fan Team. They had a nice 20,000 tournament, so I entered the maximum 10 teams, and I think 3 of them are joined third. I know a lot of people are joined third after the weekend, so it's a good start, and that will give me more interest in the F1 as well. Like Ben, have drifted away a little bit from the season-long game on Fan Team. I think I had 4 teams. None of them are doing magnificent. So I'm like Ben. I like the short bursts of daily fantasy, whether it be a weekend tournament or something like this, a 1 month tournament. And I mean the prize pool it's unbelievable. I was hoping to have a nice quiet month after the Premier League stop,
Exactly the
but
same, yeah.
I think it would be silly not to enter a team or 2 into this. And once I win it, then I might just actually retire from fantasy management then.
Well, the winner
Put
is
my
going to
feet,
be...
put my feet up.
Put your feet down. Well, the winner is going to be earning the equivalent of like 50 grand a week, into it's like literally like a Premier League footballer's wages. It's absolutely mad, and it's so exciting. I'm like you guys. So, I played on Fan Team last year, a bit, it was kind of up and coming, especially in the UK. But this year, really, really embraced it, and I've really enjoyed the monster tournaments, the Champions League one this year. It just gives us completely different perspective and angle. The kind of day-to-day grind of season-long management, having these weekly monsters just allow you to really enjoy and have some fun on the weekend. So yeah, it's a game changer, and these prize pools are just it's absolutely crazy. It's fantastic. So we've got the prize pool breakdown now up on screen for anyone watching on YouTube. It is capped, so there's going to be a maximum of 87,109 entries. Maximum. There's going to be a minimum prize pool of £1 million. And out of those 87,000 entries, over 10,000 managers are going to be paid as well. So it's not far off. 1 in every 8 entries will get a payday, which in itself, again, if you think about it, is absolutely crazy. So first prize, as we mentioned, £200,000. That is life-changing for anyone, right? Second place gets 100,000. Third, 60,000. Fourth, 37,000. Fifth, 23,000. You go all the way down the leaderboard. And everyone who finishes in the top 33 will get a minimum payout of £1,000, which is absolutely superb stuff. So well done, Fan Team. Really good, really good stuff there, and provide a lot of excitement for the summer. So onto the Fan Team game itself, and again for our YouTube watchers, we've now got the rules on screen. So Ben, you just able to kind of run through the rules, and we'll just have a chat kind of as we go through, so anyone who is brand new to Fan Team kind of get an understanding of how it works and how similar or not it is to FPL.
Yeah, so if you played FPL, the rules in and around the Fan Team game, you'll be fairly familiar with those. You have a set budget, a requirement of maximum requirement of players from a personal team, dependent on a given round. And for heading into the Euros, we're looking at 105 million to pick a squad of 15 players. So that's 15 players to go ready for the start of the tournament, and they're unlimited transfers up until 90 minutes before the first game of the tournament. So that's in line with FPL, and subsequent deadlines going forward will remain in place at 90 minutes before kickoff of that game, of that round. So that's, in terms of, that's why you get a lot of attraction and a lot of crossover with people in the fantasy community, because they can relate to this game. They can relate to the platform. They can relate to the point scoring, and they can relate, just to the, the way that the setup is generally. There are a couple of slight differences in terms of those who are maybe involved in the fantasy game and moving across to FPL, that you need to be aware of. The point matrix, you do in terms of assists and goals, they're in and around, more or less the same. However, you do get little bonuses, what we call maybe impact bonuses, which is a nice little addition, and it's for those players who are on the pitch. And maybe, if a team is winning and that player's on the pitch for that period of time, they will get a +1 bonus point. However, on the flip side of that, if their team has lost during that period and players maybe withdrawn, and then it's a -1 point. You also get a bonus point for players who are playing 90 minutes. So again, it's something to consider. We talk about, players being able to tolerate the demands of week in and week out of football. Well, within that enhanced competitive environment of a European tournament where a congested fixture period, it's imperative that managers are looking at players who are able to complete 90 minutes, game in and game out, maybe 2-3 times a week, again on one of the world's biggest stages. So, there's opportunities there if you do your research and you look, you scratch beneath the surface in terms of, the expectations of who's played and whose minutes. You can gain that little bit of extra ground and a little bit of extra momentum over maybe some of your rivals who maybe aren't doing their homework.
I think Harry Kane, just as an example, he's a kind of ultimate 90-minute man, and and these extra points, they do definitely kind of add up over the season, and everyone's always kind of searching and scrapping for these extra points. But yeah, just that 90-minute one and the impact points you mentioned, we'll get Mark to kind of run us through the matrix in a minute. But just in terms of the structure of the game as well, in terms of game week 1, you pick your initial team. As you move on then onto game week 2, which will be the second round of matches, you get a free transfer as well. You can take -4s, very similar to FPL, for any additional ones then. So, if you want to make an additional transfer above you one, you can take a hit, it's known in FPL, and the same then for game week 3. So after the group stage has finished, then you move on to game week 4, which is then the round of 16. Just to confirm that in those opening rounds, you can only have a maximum of 3 players from any one team. Again, very, very similar to FPL, kind of how it works there. On game week 4, then you get your wild card then. So you only get one wild card in this tournament. It is fixed, and this will be the round of 60. And this is where obviously all the lesser teams who have failed to get through will be out. So it's worth noting that, really, because you can take a few risks on some lesser, nations or players, knowing that you've got your wild card in your pocket as well. And I tried to build a team earlier. It's quite tough, if you want your Harry Kanes and Mbappe's, Lukaku's, De Bruyne's, it's very, very tough to build a team. You're going to have to look at these players for these, budget sort of nations as well. Your wild card can't be saved or rolled. You have to use it ahead then of game week 4, which is the round of 16. After that, then you go into game week 5, which is the quarterfinals, and you get three free transfers going into that. So this is obviously after your wild card, and then it increases down to a maximum of 4 players per team. And then as you move into game week 6, which is semi-finals, you get another 3 free transfers, and you can have up to a maximum of 7 players then from any one team. Obviously, there's only 4 teams left at that stage. And then moving on to the final, you don't get any transfers moving into the final, but you can, change your captain, bench order and stuff. So, it's quite easy to kind of work through, very, similar, in terms of most fantasy games, but, you do get plenty of opportunities refresh your team every single week. A lot of skill involved, and what I like is there's only the one wild card. So the managers, for me, who put the time in, to really thinking ahead with their picks, will probably get rewarded more than those, just chucking plays for the next game or something like that. So they're probably really important things to call out there. The captaincy works exactly the same as FPL as well. So when you pick captain, your captain will score double points. You also pick a vice every game week. Captain doesn't play. Your vice comes on instead, and your vice captain then will score double points, and the bench works exactly the same as well. So if one of your players doesn't play, if they're injured or dropped or whatever else, you will go to your first place on your bench, and they will come in as well. So again, it's very, very similar to how the FPL game works. Mark, looking at the rules, is there anything that kind of jumps out to you, in terms of something you like or something that's kind of different from FPL at all?
Yeah, I like that the wild card's fixed. Yeah. So I like that everyone's going to be on the wild card at the same time, and obviously it makes sense just right after the group stage to clear out the deadwood that are not in the tournament anymore and refresh. I also think it's very interesting that you can't make transfers for the final. So when you're setting your team for game week 6, which is the semi-final, you've really got to try and predict, which two teams are going to get through to the final to have them for that final round as well. So yeah, really like the setup. I did like the safety net feature on the monsters this season, but I think I prefer this. And I like that this is a 15-man squad as well, rather than your 11 with the safety net. It's a lot more familiar for FPL managers as well, which I think we'll see more people play the game. And obviously, the more people taking part, the more fun it's going to be during the summer. So yeah, really like the setup.
Cool. And in terms of the players, the prices as well. Obviously, these will change, and player prices can change every day based on form and sales as well, but you do get the full sale price, which is obviously different to FPL. So in FPL, let's just say you buy a player for 6 million, you sell him for 6.4, you will get back half the profits. You get back 6.2 million expenditure of the player. In FanTeam, this is exactly the same. It's a season long game. You would get the full 6.4 million back. So, you sell at their optimal price, and you get that budget then to to kind of work and build back into your team. It's also worth pointing out as well that all scoring is for 90 minutes plus injury time only. So if the game goes into extra time penalty shootouts not included. And that is good, because I played some fancy games before where a keeper has had an awful match, but he'll save 3 penalties. All of a sudden it turns the whole kind of leaderboard up on his head. And I also think it's good that from just kind of a purist view, just watching the football, if a game goes to extra time and penalties, you don't want to be really worried and concerned in that. You want to just enjoy the spectacle of the game, right? So you don't have to worry who scores, doesn't score, who concedes, who's taking penalties, who's missing the penalties for you and stuff. So and the last thing that's on the rules is the budget may increase after game week 3 depending on which teams are still in the tournament. So if all the minnows are kind of dropped out, it's going to be hard to make increasingly hard to make a really good team for the wildcard onwards. So depending on which teams are knocked out, they may increase the budget then after those.
It's good to know as well. It's quite clear that the price changes. We know what time it's going to happen. So it says between 11 p.m. GMT and 1 a.m. So because I've played tournaments before for World Cups and Euros, and it's not always clear when the price changes will happen. So it's good that they've made that clear from the outset.
I mean, I love the price volatility of FanTeam, on the weekly monsters, when it's fluctuating so much, and that the emphasis therefore is on that strategic planning and hoping, like you say, you'll be trying to second guess. But it also means that you're not a load of sheep. Not everybody's going to be migrating towards those same players, because, if you don't beat that price rise, or, the fixtures don't fall the way you want them to or expect, then they just can't afford them. And for somebody who likes a differential and likes to tend to stay away from that template, it's right up my street.
Definitely. And, it looks like it's really going to reward engaged managers, right, who are willing to put the time in, and think about kind of when they're going to make a transfer and stuff. Because, if you make it a day or two later than planned, you could miss out on, on $500,000 in budget from drops and rises, which will mean later on in the tournament you could be that kind of $500,000 short from getting to Kane, for example. You may have to settle for Rashford, or something like that. So yeah, I think engaged managers, and this is what I really like about this tournament, the whole setup of the rules in this tournament is very much geared towards really engaged managers, and if you win this game, you will absolutely deserve to win the cash. It's really set up really nicely. So next now on screen we have the point scoring. So Mark, you just able to run through this, how the points are scored, and again just kind of make any comments on how similar it is to FPL or not.
Yeah, so I'll run through and I'll stop on the ones that are slightly different. So as usual, playing time up to 60 minutes gets you 1 point. If you avoid the dreaded 59th minute and you get above 60, you get an extra one, so 2 points for playing more than 60 minutes. Midfielder or forward, if they play the full match, they get an extra point. So this is quite important. So it's only midfielders and forwards that can get this extra point for playing 90. So you've got to think, for example, if you've got 4 midfielders and 3 forwards and they all play 90, there's 7 extra points that you could possibly have. So it's important to factor in these 90-minute guys. So you've got to keep an eye, in these World Cup qualifiers that are on at the moment, and the couple of friendlies that'll be before the tournament, which guys are getting the 90 minutes. For goals scored, goalkeeper gets 8, which is more than FPL. I think in FPL they only get the same as a defender, which is good because in a tournament, it's much more likely that goalkeepers will go up in the last minute to try and get an equaliser if a team is about to get knocked out of the tournament. So hopefully we'll see a couple of goalkeepers get their head on something and get 8 points. Defender scores 6 points, midfielder 5, forward 4. That's all familiar to us. Clean sheet for goalkeepers and defenders, 4 points. They have to play 60 minutes, of course, to get that. Midfielder, likewise, if he plays 60 minutes, gets a clean sheet, he gets 1. Assists are 3. We're well used to that. Goalkeeper saves are different. So in FPL, we have to get 3 saves before we get a point. But in FanTeam, every save counts. You get 0.5 for each save. So it can be worth, going for the cheaper goalkeepers who are going to rack up a lot of saves in the tournament. A penalty save for a goalkeeper is 5. And then we have the impact points, which Ben already mentioned. If the team wins in the period that the player is on the pitch, they get 1 point. But if they lose in the period that they're on the pitch, they lose a point. So again, if you're thinking of a starting 11, you really want to target players from teams that you think are going to win matches. Because if you've got a starting 11 and all 11 players win their game, that's 11 points. And 11 points is a lot in a FanTeam leaderboard. So always keep that in mind as well. That's why I tend not to have too many players from teams, even though they might be good value, but they're probably not going to win the match. So I tend to try and stick to the favourites when I'm looking at individual matches.
I may need to reassess my Wales triple up then potentially when we come to look at my draft.
You're starting on -3.
Starting on -3, exactly.
In terms of negative points then, if a goalkeeper or defender concedes 2 goals, it's -1. An OG is -2. Penalty miss is also -2. Yellow card -1. Red card -3. And then 2 different ones that we're not used to seeing. A foul resulting in a free kick scored is a -2. So, for example, if James Ward-Prowse is on the pitch for an England game, you probably don't want defenders from the opposition team. And a foul resulting in a penalty is also a -2. So you probably want to avoid those clumsy defenders. You probably got to find out who they are before the tournament starts.
I think Andy Robertson he's been a bit clumsy in the last season or 2 for Liverpool, haven't he? But I don't know. That may just be observational rather than factual. But yeah, and I think the thing that strikes me, really, really quickly here, if you play Fantasy Premier League, you can convert over to this so easily. It's not difficult. As long as you understand the nuances and you understand the impact points, the goalkeeper saves, which I actually think add to the whole experience of the game as well. Especially the saves. It's really, really harsh that if a keeper makes 5 saves in FPL, you only get 1 point, whereas obviously in this they'd get 2.5 points. It's much more reflective of the impact that they've had on the game, including the impact points as well. Which what you mentioned of being on the pitch and things. In terms of my season-long FanTeam performance against my FPL, just for context. So we mentioned at the start of this season when we started looking at our season-long teams that we thought that you can basically run your FanTeam season-long team alongside your FPL team. I've kind of done that. And I've got to be fair, in terms of performance of my teams, relatively and contextually, they've had very similar, a performance as well. Have you found that Mark, with your teams? Have you run them similarly?
Yeah, I think I had 4 teams and I ran 2 of them quite closely.
Yeah.
I think one of them was basically in one of those teams I'd make transfers on a Friday, and the other one I would go for the more aggressive, a Monday transfer. And it does reflect quite close to what my FPL team is.
How about you, Ben?
Not really. I try to run the 2 separately. The FPL team is a anti-template, set and forget captain. I think I was around about maybe 12% template at one point. I did go through a stage where I didn't use my wild card. And have I used any chips? I may have all my chips in place still. So I went really against the grain because I just wanted to do something different, because it gets to that point where it just becomes boring. And overall rank, bragging rights maybe within your mini league for a day or two. But I'm swayed before, I need that shot in the arm. I need that injection. So that's why all my focus really shifted towards the monsters, in all honesty. And again, it just suits my, dare say, more maverick style of play, where I would go and pick, how often would you go out and pick West Brom defenders, Sheffield United players, this season. So it allowed me to do that. And on the premise that, most weeks you mightn't finish in the money, but I've had it. But when you do finish, you tend to finish quite high up. Not as high as Mark finished in a particular game week, but doing all right. So happy on that front.
Just for those who don't know, Mark won the game week 18, I think it was, wasn't it, Mark? A weekly monster.
Yeah, with like Ben mentioned, when would you ever pick Sheffield United players for your FPL team? I had Ramsdale, I had McGoldrick, I had Joel Ward from Crystal Palace.
Was the saviour, wasn't he? He won it for you, didn't he? Amazing stuff. Yeah.
Those guys won me five grand, so that was a pretty sweet game week.
Awesome. Okay.
Won you a dog, Mark?
Yeah, and a couple of doors and a couple of
doors,
radiators.
wasn't it? That was it. Exciting time.
Very exciting purchases.
So on the screen now for our YouTube viewers, we just got the opening fixtures up. So we open up in the Euros on Friday, the 11th of June. It's Turkey versus Italy. I've got to be fair. I really need to do some research on the teams. I think with all the all the COVID stuff and things, I kind of I've gone a bit off the boil in terms of my kind of knowledge and stuff recently in the last year, internationals. I really need to swat. Secondly, then, is the biggest game of the whole tournament on Saturday afternoon. It's my birthday as well, actually, but it's Wales versus Switzerland, so we will all be looking forward to Wales versus Switzerland. Then we've got Denmark and Finland and Belgium and Russia, so we get our first look at Belgium, who are some of the favourites. They've got an awesome team, really, really exciting. The next day then, on the Sunday early kickoff, we have England versus Croatia, which is a tough start for England there. I think Gens Croatia are really, really good side. And then we have Austria versus North Macedonia. Certainly never seen them in a Euros or World Cup in my lifetime. Anyway, and then we get our first look of the Netherlands in the evening. They play the Ukraine. Scotland versus the Czech Republic. Scotland have been playing all right, I think, in all fairness, recently. Poland play Slovakia, then Spain versus Sweden, and then on the Tuesday we finish up with Hungary against Portugal. France versus Germany. What a game that is going to be on the Tuesday the 15th, 8 o'clock in the evening. Some really exciting matches to look forward to there, and that's match day 1, game week 1 fixtures. So we then look, so now for our YouTube watchers, we've just got an initial quick look. We're not going to go into players on this one. We will do ones in the future where we start to look at, kind of players and strategy and tactics and formations and structure a little bit more. But we have got the most expensive players in the game up on screen now for those watching on YouTube. I'll just briefly run through them. So Harry Kane, 13.5 million. So he is the most expensive player in the game. I've got to say, especially after his performance last week, it's probably merited potentially, in terms of their group, in terms of in terms of the expectation of England. Just Ben, being an Englishman, I know you said you're like slightly reserve maybe, and and you're excited for England. They've got such an exciting team on paper, young attacking team.
Look, I don't tend to buy in all of this hyperbole, about England are going to go out and do this. I'm a lot more of a, I think I'm a lot more of a realist, and I like to temper that enthusiasm a little bit. Look, there's a lot can happen between now and the beginning of the tournament. I prefer to make informed judgments based on what I'm seeing, and disregard these last couple of internationals. I could go out and probably beat them by myself. Absolute garbage, by the way. So, reading too much into performances and results. I mean, Mark Luxembourg, but another little dig there. But, they've got the job done, and that's all it is. It's a ticky box exercise. Like yourself, I'll be honing in a lot more, as we sort of near that point. But there's no reason why we shouldn't go out there and put in a really good performance and get deep into that tournament. Like you see, you've got the personnel, you've got the talent. It's whether they're deployed the way that we'd like to see it. And I still think there's one or two surprises in that Gareth Southgate squad. And ultimately, though, there are one or two key players within that squad, Harry Kane being one of them. If he was to pick up an injury, if one of those players was to miss out, then, who are you looking at, to actually come in to that side? So, it still hinges on a few things, and, we will need that little bit of luck to go deep in the tournament. But
I do think, it's a bit of a one-off in terms of, ever since, my first tournament I can remember for England was 1990. I was only kind of at the time, right? Obviously really, really excited. But ever since then, this is the first England team I've seen where I don't think a lot of the top European teams will have, if you think of a midfield, let's just use Mount, Grealish and Foden, right? No one has seen them play for England much, never mind play all together, in a really kind of attacking, exciting, youthful force. It's the first time in a long time, I think I've been, I'm Welshman obviously, but I always like to see the home nations doing well, and I'm quite excited for England. I think their defence is maybe a bit, a bit ropey. I'm not Maguire's biggest fan, but going forward, I think we've got every reason to be really excited. Mark, obviously you're an Irishman based in Scotland. Have you got any thoughts on Scotland and England or Wales, like how they're going to do?
Well, I certainly won't be an England fan for the tournament as an Irishman. It's we always root for you boys to lose, Ben. So I think I'll probably have to buy myself a Scotland shirt. I've been here now for I think 5 or 6 years. It's about 1/6 of my life, so I'm 1/6 Scottish at this stage. So I'll be keeping an eye on those during the tournament. I think they've had a couple of draws this week, so I'll check those out. What I've done is just with all the World Cup qualifiers on Sky Sports, I've just hit a series link and recorded them all, and then once the Premier League season's over, I'll spend that couple of weeks before the tournament going through the footage like a crime scene investigator to pick out some hidden gems for this fan team tournament. So yeah, I'll probably be a Scotland fan for the tournament.
Okay, just working that way down the list then in terms of prices. Like I mentioned, Kane is top 13.5. Kylian Mbappe is the second highest, 13 million. Then we've got Kevin De Bruyne for Belgium at 12.5. Raheem Sterling, bit overpriced. He's not had his best season as he's Sterling. I know he does a lot of work. He creates a lot, does a lot of work off the ball. But I don't know. I think he's a bit overpriced there, especially when you see that Lukaku is 11.5 million. He's surely a better option than Sterling. Rashford is 11 million. Torgan Hazard at 10.5. Griezmann for France at 10.5. Sancho for England, we haven't mentioned him yet. He's 10 million. Cristiano Ronaldo, record breaker, 10 million striker. Morata for Spain at 10 million. Timo Werner, let's hope he can do better for Germany, as he tends to, in all fairness, that he has done for Chelsea this season. He's 9.5. Jack Grealish is 9.5. Martial is 9.5. And Mertens is 9 million. Any of those, I think Bruno Fernandes is 9, which for me looks quite cheap. Any kind of immediate thoughts there, gents, on players like kind of overpriced or underpriced at all? And anyone expect to be higher or lower?
I agree with you on Sterling. But, in fairness, you are, you're pricing players up based on potential returns. Exactly. And you're talking about a guy who has delivered on the world's biggest stage. He has tournament experience, and maybe you reference the likes of the Mounts and the Grealish of this world. They haven't played in a major tournament for England before, so those players going along to the tournament will be looking to the likes of the Raheem Sterlings, the Harry Kanes, and Gareth Southgate will want those players to be an example, to go out there and use their experience and carry that team, particularly through the first and second game. And it wouldn't put it past somebody like Raheem Sterling, to go out and deliver and to really lift that group. But yeah, when you're looking at maybe a Lukaku, particularly when he's on spot kicks, and the way Belgium play in terms of an attacking sense, and his goals per minute ratio, both at domestic and international level, I think he's a little bit of a steal at that price.
So anyone kind of leap out, you mark from that list?
Probably the main man, Mr. Ronaldo, at 10 million. I know he's pushing on an age now, but look at that fixture on paper: Hungary against Portugal. That's got a hat trick written all over it. I think he might have got a hat trick, did he, in the opening game of the last tournament, if my memory serves me correctly. So I like him at 10 million. You could actually argue there that all of the England players are possibly overpriced. Sterling, Rashford, Kane, Mbappe's expensive as well. I think what that list tells me is there's going to be an awful lot of very good value in this tournament with players that are not on this list. Bruno's a good example. I think Lewandowski's 9 million. There's a couple of others I looked at as well. Eriksen, 7 million. Even players like Gareth Bale at 6 million. So there's going to be I think there'll be a lot of variety, because I think these guys at the top, they are quite expensive.
I noticed as well that Nick Pope, who's obviously started the last two for England, is probably favourite to start a tournament. He's slightly underpriced at 5.5 million, because they've got Pickford down as number one. So I'm sure we'll look at these in future pods, but just quite exciting to whet our appetite in terms of looking at the playlist. It's so nice to look at different players for different teams in it, and kind of it's really exciting actually to look at a different tournament when you're all on zero, when you've got all the kind of you've got the same chance of everyone else of winning a competition. I've just got a very, very quick draft up on screen. Like I say, I've gone for triple Wales. Obviously, Wales are going to go and win the Euros, which is why I've tripled on them. But I've just put together a quick team just so we could just have a look of what one might look like. So I went for Pope in goals at 5.5 million. I've gone for a 4-3-3 with a fodder bench, but I managed to get Reguilon for Spain, who is at 6.5. Cancelo for Portugal at 6.5. So my Premier League sort of FPL connections and stuff in there. Then I've then gone for two Welsh defenders, but I do actually think that the Welsh defence is actually very good. They've got a decent group. Ben Davies at 5 million and Joe Rodon at 4.5. So obviously that will probably change. I'll probably get one of them out at least. But I do think the Welsh defence could be decent. In midfield then, Bruno Fernandes at 9 million. Gundogan, who has been my Premier League player of the new year, absolutely fantastic. So he's 8 million. And then Gareth Bale, my third Welshman, as you said, at 6 million. I think that's a really good price. If you consider he's a talisman for that team, And then at front, I've gone all out attack at front. Harry Kane, 13.5. Kylian Mbappe at 13, and Lukaku at 11.5. So that'll just give you a brief kind of flavour of what kind of team you can put together. It's quite a decent team. I have got 4 million across all my bench, so we're probably going to need to mess about to get to a decent team, because you are probably going to need one or two playing bench players. But no, I think it's pretty decent.
I'll tell you who's attracting a little bit of interest, or certainly piqued me interest with the last two results, and they're coming up against your guys, Andrew, is Turkey. Right. They got a great result against the Netherlands. I think that was 4-2, and then they went to Norway and won 3-0 there. So if you look at the players in and
Wow.
around their price points, I think they're 5 million, 4.5. So there's a lot of value. They've got one more World Cup qualifying, a couple of friendlies to come, but if they can continue that level of performance and keep getting results, then they might be a bit of an outsider at a great price. So I don't fancy your chances. I don't fancy your two Welsh defenders.
Well, we'll see. We will see. Was it in Euros in 2016? It took a Daniel Sturridge injury time goal on it due to beat the Welsh. So we'll see.
Not sure.
I remember. I was in the pub and I was absolutely devastated because Bale scored a free kick just on half time on it, and
Hopefully, we'll be in the pub watching these games.
Oh, can you imagine? It'd be absolutely superb. We'll have to meet up as well, guys. If we can, we'll have to try and meet up. Even though we're kind of based all over the UK, we maybe try and meet at some kind of central point. Okay, so that is it from us for this Euros £1 million prize pool introductory episode. Hopefully, it has whetted your appetites enough to give FanTeam a go and to also give the Euros a go. I remember it is capped at 87,000 entries. So to start drafting your team, make sure you click in the link at the top of the description right now. You can make unlimited changes right up to the first kickoff of the competition on the 11th of June. We will be back with another couple of episodes before the big kickoff, looking more in depth at our strategies and refining our Game Week 1 teams. Remember, if you like what you watched, please click the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And if you're listening on a podcast, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It would be much appreciated. So this podcast will be available as a video on the FanTeam YouTube channel. We recommend going onto YouTube because you see, you see all the graphics and our beautiful faces. But it's also available as an audio version on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. Just search for Official FanTeam Podcast. Our website is fanteam.com and our Twitter handles are at FanTeamOfficial and at FanTeam_UK. Give us a follow for regular game updates and for entry giveaways for lots of FanTeam competitions, including this Euros one. I think there was one this week actually, so we're giving away entries as well. So make sure you follow on Twitter. We will be back soon with more Euros content as the competition approaches. Until then, stay safe and get drafting those Euros Game Week 1 teams. Goodbye for now.